Okay, so welcome to class number 4 of Shara Yichud with commentary by Reb Hillel of Parach. Today we're going to learn about a new concept, which is called Omek, and it can be found on page 18 of the English version and on the third page of Hebrew, page Kufnun. But before we start a new subject, we're going to just have a look do a bit of a review of last week, which was about dusk. And so far, dusk seems to be the one that generates the most questions and the most challenges in a way. But as I keep saying to you, we're going to revisit dusk later in more detail. And ironically, when you go into more detail, you would think that it becomes harder, but it actually becomes easier when you get more details. But right now, this is how Reb Hillel is building our resources. So first of all, he's telling us about Chochmah, Bina, and Das in quite a general way. And then we're going to start going into more detail. And I was thinking it's kind of like a building project. Not that many of us are builders, but we build different projects. And in a sense, what he's doing is he's showing us the different aspects of this project, almost like the different tools you'll need or the different things you need to know. And then he'll put it all together. So until we really see how it all works together, we don't have that much information. We're really just learning the basics of what Hitbonenut is. And then once we have all the different elements, he'll put it all together and it'll make a lot more sense. But, this is the nature of learning, especially learning something new. We have to, we have to learn it like in a sequence. We can't see the whole picture until we have all the details. And that's just the nature of learning, especially learning something new. So I wanted to share with you. I don't usually go outside of the text, but it just seemed so obvious to me this week. It jumped out at me every time that I did the Amidah. I don't know if this happened to any of you, but one of the first blessings of the Amidah is about Chochmah, Bina, and Das. And it's quite interesting. So the Amidah says, Ata chonen le'adam das, you Hashem, you graciously bestow das, knowledge upon man, umelamed le'nosh bina, and you teach people bina, understanding. Chanenu me'etcha chochmah bina vadat. Graciously bestow upon us chochmah, your chochmah, just chochmah bina and dat. And then the last thing we say is Baruch Ata Hashem chonen hadas. And I was thinking, wow, like, why? So first of all, it's interesting. The first thing is that you give das. The second thing is that you teach bina. And then it's like, give us chochmah, bina, and das. But what do we say at the end? Blessed are you who gives das. So there's something about das that is vital. And I wondered, Mila, do you want to say anything about this? Because it seems to me, we didn't speak about this, but it seems like it's saying that Hashem has to give us das. Chochmah and Bina doesn't, it doesn't emphasize the giving as much. It's almost like the Chochmah and Bina we have to work on. But the das, it repeats a number of times that it's given to us. I don't know if I have just to tell you that I have construction going on in my house. So I hope that it's not coming through to Zoom.
No, I don't hear it, Nuria. Yeah, but it's interesting because I started teaching one of my elementary classes about the meaning of davening, and yeah, it was really beautiful when we came to this bracha. It's actually one of the first brachas that we say on Chol, right? Meaning the first three brachas of Amida and the last three brachas of Amida, they are the same, regardless to which davening we daven. So Chonen Adas is the davening that usually davened only on Chol, on an ordinary day, because on Shabbos we have, a separate davening, and Yom Kippur any other davening. So this is the ordinary day. And interestingly, I was thinking, on other days, Hashem kind of takes us on a journey. If it's Shabbos or Yom Tov, the reshus of the person is to access these things. And this is the first thing that we do when we understand that it's an ordinary day. It's an ordinary Shemona Esrei. So come on, turn on your Chochmah, turn on your Bina.
I just want to, can I say something, Smalka?
Sure, hi, Malcolm.
Hi, I think when I hear the word chonein, it's like a gift. So, no, because Nuria said something like he has to give it to us. What did you maybe mean, like once we've worked through the Chachma and Bina, then it's a result? But
pretty much. That's why, we could kind of look into why Shema. Remember the original question that we have still pounding? Why Shema is given with Bina, not with Das? I mean, it doesn't say openly in the text. That was my question, right? In the text, it says why Bina and not Chachma, right? This is the question from the text. And if we think a little bit, we also could come up with a question, why Bina and not Das? Because the mitzvah of Yedias Elokus given with Das, Da et Eloki Avicha, right? No. So it seems that, yeah, Das is a result of toil, I guess. When you work hard with your Bina, I don't know, but I guess, let's wait and see what's where the text is going to take us.
I also wondered if perhaps it had something to do with Chosh, that when we were looking at the root of Das, which we'll go over now, that it seems like to some extent the Chosh is based on our Ratzon, which is based on the essence of our neshama. That's how he describes the Chosh. So a number of people were asking, well, how do you impact your Chosh? And to some extent, it seems like what is in the essence of our neshama is given. It's not necessarily something that that we can impact that much. So I thought maybe there was a connection there. But let's have a look. I want to just do a bit of a review of Das. And let's just remember why we're learning about Chochmah, Bina, and Das, because he's going to take us into the idea of Hisbonenus. And the reason we need to know about Hisbonenus is because that's the way that we come to know Hashem and to unify his name, as in Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. So Das. We looked at Chochmah and Bina, and Chochmah was Haskala, which is conceptualization, and Bina was Havana, which is understanding. And the first thing that Reb Hillel tells us is that Das is neither one of these. Das is Hitkashut, which is connection. I have to apologize. Sometimes I say Das and sometimes I say Dat, because sometimes I've been in America where I'm connected to Chabad and say Das, and sometimes I'm in Israel and the Israelis say Dat. So I hope I'm not confusing people with my turns for some of for quite a number of the words, actually. Okay, so das is connection. So what does that mean? So last week, we asked everybody to think of a situation where you felt completely immersed in an experience. And most people could come up with some kind of experience, whether it was painting a painting, or somebody said playing the piano, another person said giving birth, where you become completely immersed in what you're involved in, and you forget about time, you forget about yourself, you lose yourself, and also you don't think of anything else at the time that you're involved in this particular thing. So now, if you have children or grandchildren, or even look at yourself, you'll see that one child will be very connected to a particular subject matter, and another child is just really not interested at all. And we see it in adults too. One person can spend hours and hours on a particular subject matter or particular activity, and it really doesn't interest the other person. So Reb Hillel gives an example of two people who have the same intellectual capacity, which is important, but one of them gets very connected to the subject matter and the other one does not at all. And the first person can spend a lot of time on it and is completely connected. He has das into it. His das connects him to this idea, to this activity, or to this concept that he's learning. And the other person really is, daydreaming, thinking about other things, and really doesn't want to spend much time at all on this concept or on this activity. So then Rebbe Hillel, for me, there's an unspoken question. The question is, well, why? Why does one person get connected to something and the other person doesn't? So then Reb Hillel goes on and he talks about the root of das. And here he gives an example. And he gives an example of a person who is naturally very chesed. And I wanted to give you an example from my own life, just to bring it alive, at least for me. So I'm currently in a community, a Chabad community in North Florida. There's a woman here who every Friday night, she has 50 to 60 guests in her home, and the table is laden with food. She makes about 20 different kinds of salads. There are 2 different kinds of fish, 3 different kinds of meat, and of course, at least 2 different kinds of desserts. And she does this every single week. And this is her chesed. It does help that she's Moroccan and she's a good cook. But if there's a chesed opportunity in the community, she's the first one to jump in. And I remember seeing on the WhatsApp group for this community, there was you don't hear a lot of noise? Oh my gosh. So there was an opportunity in the community to go at 2 o'clock in the morning to sit with in the place where they keep. It's an unusual situation. It was somebody who had passed away and was being kept in a place half an hour from this particular community, and they wanted people to go and sit with the body and say Tehillim. Who was the first person who jumped to do this mitzvah? This woman. It's like she's always looking for chesed opportunities. She walks into the shul on Shabbat, and she's not the Rebbetzin, but she's the one who's hugging people, and She calls everybody beautiful, and she's just always looking for chesed. And I look at a person like this and I say, wow, this is not me. You know, I don't think I'll ever have 50 people every Friday night for, it's just not something that I can relate to in myself. But when I see how Reb Hillel describes this process of somebody who is connected in the essence of their neshama to chesed, and that comes out as a desire to do chesed all the time, and that it becomes revealed. It's a revealed desire. And then the chush is the connection, is her connection to the desire to do good and chesed all the time. So then she's looking and listening, and everywhere she is, she's looking out for chesed opportunities. And then this chush, which is her connection to her desire to do good and to do chesed, stimulates in her the thoughts in her chokhmah and then in her bina, why it's so important to do chesed. Like for her, that's her Judaism, to always be doing chesed. And then she's constantly thinking in her bina brain, maybe goes between chokhmah and bina, how to do it, like how to manifest chesed to a lot of different people in lots of different ways. And so the das is what connects her and keeps her connected to thinking and working out ways to bring chesed into the world. And so the source of her das is really in this chush, which is the connection to her desire to do chesed, which is connected back to the essence of her neshama, which is rooted somehow in chesed. So for me, that kind of describes, looking at this woman, I see this kind of process of her being connected to chesed, to always looking for ways to do chesed. And it just seems so natural for her. And it's constant. So that's my explanation of das. Mila, would you like to add something?
No, I think you did a great job. It's beautiful because you know, we see we were talking with Naria after the class when we were planning the next one about what's the difference between a talent and a chush, remember? And I know chush is very often mixed with a talent. And Bezrat Hashem, when we're going to be learning other, you know, a little bit, going a little bit deeper in Shara Yichud, we're going to uncover where a talent stands in the Seder Ishtalshalos. And the chush is actually the first expression of the ratzon. That's what it is. It's in a way a keli for the ratzon. It's through which the ratzon expresses itself, and it's more of if we, you know, trying to find the right word for it, it would be the intuition. It's higher than talent. It's deeper than talent. It's when it's way before the talent actually emerges, and this is the level where we really deeply connect to that thing. And again, the key word here is connect. And I looked back in a text when I was doing my review, and in a text we see over here, v'shoresh hadas talui b'mi sheyesh lo chush be'etzem hadavar, right? Is the one who has chush in the essence of that thing. It's a sensing the thing. Okay, we definitely all have that. Is when we sense people who we love very much. You will definitely will feel that coming up. For example, we sense our children. We know what's happening with them, although this is not something intellectual. It's higher than intellect. Now, we cannot call that sense a talent. It's not a talent. It's sensing. We could see already just by looking at our children that something is happening with them. Whether it's positive or not so positive, we could sense things. And by women, it's interesting. This is one of the Mefarshim that talk about Eliezer giving to Rivka the jewelry items, right? He gave her the nose ring, and he gave her bracelets, right? And something. And one of the Mefarshim talked about why he gave a nose ring is because of this sense of smelling. It's in a way of smelling, is that when you smell the environment, we're not talking about the physical smell. This is more of having that a deeper perception of reality. And this is something that's a gift. Actually, a few people asked me about what the chush is, and chush is a given, and it's equal to all of us, because all of us, we possess the same atmos, right? The same etzem hadavar. And why some people have more chush than others is that it's just that power is more revealed by some people. It's not something that we could make have more chush in something. We could develop our intuition, but intuition is possessed by everybody. Sometimes we have layers and layers and layers of things that are preventing that chush to be revealed. But chush is by everybody. That's a good thing that we could kind of breathe in and breathe out, and like, okay, this is not something that we could acquire. Now, the intellect, it's something that some of us have more, some of us have less, because this is something that's our reshus. This is something that we could work on something, and so on and so forth. Now, regarding the chush, what we could work on is uncovering it, digging it out, becoming more familiar with it when it speaks. Okay, so I kind of worked a little bit on my mind map. So I want to share it. It will help us a little bit to do the review. So this is so far how it's looking on my end. We could just go in skira achas from the beginning, right? This is Shara Yechud. He said about Shema Yisrael. He brings down the Rambam, the foundation of all foundations and a pillar of all wisdom, to know that there's God, and he makes all of existence. Halacha zayin, that this God is one. Then he asked 3 questions, right? He made a statement that Shema is understanding. It's not just physical, but spiritual power of the inner ear. He asked 3 questions to understand what is his bonus, why double nun, and why bina and not chachma. Then he jumps back here into, actually, I learned this new tool. Neria, where was it? Is it by the share, right? No. There's a tool that you could point or annotate. Okay, good. I see. Yay. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so now we have 3 parts of our mind. And first 2 is Chachma and Bina. I don't know, for some reason, I like to put them together, because the Masholim that he gives here, he constantly brings them together. So he brings a mashal of Sechel of Asiya, of a beautiful building, how sensing the building, the beauty of the building, was Chachma, and knowing why the building is beautiful was Bina. Then he brings the Seichel of the Midas, this whole Talmudic discussion about the egg, which was born on on Yom Tov? How come it's muktzah and a calf that was born on Yom Tov is not muktzah from Treifa? And about the Rav being quiet, but not going back on his psak din, and Rabbi Bar Nechemia knowing all the details. Then we go back into the flow of the Maimer. It talks about das. It brings down the das. Das is iskashrus bilvad. It's not understanding. It's not perceiving. It's just connecting to it. He brings the three symptoms of das, if we can call it. Symptom number one is that he's fully focused and doesn't think about other things. Number two, he forgets about self. And number three, he forgets about time. Okay. And then he also mentions that das is rooted in chush. And he brings the mashal. This is my purple line. And he brings the mashal of the chasdan, the person who is kind in nature. And because this is his essence, because his essence is so, then the chushim start working for him. Meaning that choshim are going to be there to facilitate that his desire is actually expressed from the beginning all the way until the end, meaning until the action. Yeah, all his faculties, his intellectual faculties, his emotional faculties, and his maisa is going to be working to deliver what his Ratzon wants. And that's pretty much where we left off.
I have a question. Why do you say chushim? Like, it sounds like there's more than one sense when you say that.
For sure, because there are more than one sense.
You're talking about
mentioned
the five and the five senses, or you mean?
He says, yeah, he doesn't talk about five senses. He's talking about Zayin Tikkun Gulgalta, if you look in the middle.
Right, that's what I meant.
He says about, and he uses the word chushim. It says, Shehem bechinas chushim shelemala min haseichel. So Rabbi Hillel uses plural when he uses the word chushim.
Can you use
the senses?
Can you use your chushim to develop other midos beside the one that you were born with as the main midah? The main like if you're
remember, Malka, we're not applying this yet. We are still, we're keeping our mind open. There's no bechein for this. Why? I'll tell you why. Because he uses a lot of time about the chasdan, but we possess all the midas within us. There are midas, any midah could be born. And now I think we're a little bit premature to try to apply this, because later on he's going to show us how to do it. So I think we could just really be curious about knowing what it is and trying to discover it. But I would stay away from bechein about how are we accessing choshim and all that stuff. For us, we know that our soul possesses all the midas, although we might be a little bit screwed up because of our upbringing and the life experiences we went through, and some of the midas were not necessarily developed properly, and there's a memory in it somewhere stored in our body. But that doesn't mean anything, because the blueprint of ourselves, our essence possesses all the midas in the perfect state. So we're not doomed. Now the question is, how do we access it? That's a different question. That's Bezrat Hashem will be coming along as we move along with this, definitely with the first chapter. So anybody has any questions about this diagram, and does that make sense, Bechal, to anybody? Or
I wasn't asking how to apply it. I was just wanting to know about it, like about.
Right. But that's like a little bit jumping ahead. Yeah. We definitely, know how to access. We will know it, B'ezrat Hashem. So just be a little bit patient.
It's not a question, it's just a comment. It's very beautiful and very clear. I'm acknowledging
thank
it. Really, really great.
Great. Baruch Hashem. Okay. Hush antenna. Oh, that's very cute. Okay, so I see we have, does Hush ever recede or go away? That's a good question. What do you think, Naria? What happens to Hush?
So it was a question that I had as well, because one of the things that it says, it's quite curious. It says that a hush is, I just want to find the exact wording here. The connection that a person has to his ratzon at the time that he desires is called hush. Like that's Reb Hillel, the way he defines it. So I also wondered, what does it mean at the time that he desires, the connection that he has? And I wonder if that's where Nechama gets the question from. What does it mean at the time that he desires, then that his hush is active?
Well, I'll tell you why. I think we could use to a very basic desire is to sustain ourselves, and let's say we really want to drink. Okay, for example, animals, they could smell water, right? The chushim are so developed that they could literally know where the water is. They smell it. Well, I guess our ancestors, if they lived in desert, they probably, could smell water as well, because there is a necessity to know where the water is, because a person cannot live without the water, right? So if I have a basic need to drink water or to eat, and I don't have supermarket, like I'm not an American, right? Where I don't need to work hard to go to buy food. Let's say if I'm, I don't know, if I'm in a place where there is not enough food or something like that, right? So the desire to eat is going to grow much stronger. Why? Because I need to preserve myself. This is a basic ratzon that a person has, not to die, basically. Okay, so the when I'm hungry and I really want to go to eat, I'm gonna have that connection to that ratzon, and my chushim are gonna look at my environment to try to find food. Okay, once I found that piece of bread and I've eaten, right? Now, my mind is not going to be, my chush, not my mind, my chush is not going to be out there to find food because that desire was satisfied. Like that's why he uses that expression, is when there is this desire, my chush is going to be my slave to find, in a way, where this desire could be satisfied. But once that desire is satisfied, for that given moment, maybe after 3 hours, it's going to reawaken. Yeah, maybe after, a person have eaten, he's going to have a desire to rest a little bit, and he would have, his chush are going to be out there where is a safe place to rest. Right? I'm just trying to bring this extreme examples, but they, beautifully demonstrate how the person works. Like a person's not going to rest in the middle of the battlefield. He would have to find a quiet, safe corner where he could rest. So his chush is going to work to find him that. Now, what happened to his desire to eat? What happened to his chush to eat? His chushim to eat? They blocked at the moment. Why? Because there's no desire to eat. On a table is to find a safe place. Before it was on a table, I need to eat. I need to drink water. And whatever that desire, is going to, we have like different cards with desires, like where to find money, where to find this, where to find that. And our chushim, it's actually a beautiful idea. Koti brought, it's like antennas that, get us information where we should navigate our environment for the things that we need and want. So, yeah, so that's all right. So
Okay.
let's go.
So we're going to go on to the next subject, which is Omek. I'm going to give you a quick preview. Just hopefully some of you have read about it already, but just to kind of prepare your minds for the reading and translating. So what we're going to start doing next week is Reb Hillel is going to talk to us about the three different aspects of Chokhmah, the three parts of Bina, and the three parts of Dat. And it consists of Omek, Rochav, and Orech, which literally means depth, width, and length. But in order to do that, he first has to explain to us this concept of Omek, because it's not it's not so it's not such a simple concept. So he spends a whole paragraph just talking about Omek. And the first thing that he says is that Omek, which means depth, is not an actual existence. It's not a mahut in and of itself. It just connects between two entities. So it's almost the meeting point between two entities. And in its essence, it's an ayin. But I think we'll see that it's a different ayin than the way that we've been talking about ayin before. And I'm not going to go into details. We'll go into detail. Mila will go into the So then he wants to help us to try and understand something that doesn't exist, ki'ilu, almost. Like it's an ayin, it's not a mahut. So what is it? So he brings three examples. And he brings an example from the physical world. And he brings an example from time, which is more spiritual. And then he brings an example which is even more spiritual, which is the relationship between a teacher and a pupil. So the physical example is an example in space, which is the meeting place of two walls, where two walls meet. There's something that is created called a corner. But what is a corner? You can't say every point that you can point to is either on the one wall or on the other wall. But when they meet, they create this ayin that we call a corner. That's the one mashal, that's the one analogy. The next analogy is an analogy in time, where you have, excuse me, the meeting of day and night. Now, where does day become night? At what point can you say it's not day and it's not night? Every moment in time is either day or it's night. But there's this moment where they meet that is like an ayin. It's a non-existent, existent point. Okay. The third example, which is more spiritual, I think for me is the easiest to understand, because he explains how the teacher, in order to give over a very deep concept that is beyond the grasp, the ordinary grasp of the student, the teacher will need to take all of his knowledge and put it aside in order to measure the light for the vessel of the student. So in the teacher, he has to create an ayin. He has to create a space within himself to see somebody else. It's kind of like when you have to describe something very sophisticated to a child. You have to take away the vastness of your understanding and your knowledge in order to give over the nakuda to the child so they can understand it. Now, that's the ayin, or that's the omek in the teacher. Then in the pupil, the pupil has to make space within themselves to receive something that that they've never understood before. And in order to do that, the receiver, the pupil, has to make a huge space inside of them, put aside their existing ideas and really the coarseness of their present understanding in order to make space for something new. And this is called the ayin of, or the bitul of the student. So those are the three Masholim that Reb Hillel gives us so that we can try and understand this idea of Omek, which is so, it's like, how do you describe something that almost doesn't exist, but it has to exist because we talk about it, but it's an ayin, it's not a mahut. So this is how he gives us these three examples to try and bring it closer to our minds. And when next week and in the following weeks, he talks about the Omek of Chochmah and the Omek of Bina, I think that you begin to understand it more deeply because you see how it becomes practical, how Omek is almost like this doorway that opens between one existence and another existence. And he says it with the student and the pupil, that really the pupil wants to receive this new knowledge on the level of Omek, in the deepest place inside of them. Okay, Mila, over to you. We'll look at it in the text and see how he describes it in actual words.
Right. Yeah, Omek definitely is something exceptionally extraordinary. It's one of those mysterious things out there. And yeah, it definitely will require a lot of our Omek, right? to be revealed and really accepting it from that place. And okay, so let's see how Reb Hillel is actually, bringing that awareness to us. Okay, me'ata yesh lahavin. Oh, 1 second, let me just annotate this. Okay, we are right here. Me'ata yesh lahavin. From now, there is, we need to understand איך שיש בכל אחד מגימל חלקי השכל, how there is in all three parts of the seichel that we spoke about, which is Chabad, which is Chochmah, Bina, and Das, Kanal. They are themselves have Gimel Bechinas, three aspects. Shu Bechinas Omek, which is the depth. Shu Bechinas Orech, which is the length. Bechinas Rochav, and the width. So in a way, instead of seeing Seder Hishtalshelus as something flat, he brings 3-dimension to it. And it's no longer flat, right? It's Seder Hishtalshelus, I would say, it's the most compound, thing that actually creates the whole of existence, right? This is the structure that Hashem created, so it's definitely not flat. So interestingly to note right here, I'm going to point right now that Omek, he says over here Omek, he says Orech, he says length, and then Rochav. Yeah, just keep that in mind, that what would be naturally when we want to describe 3-dimension, we want to talk about the depth, we want to talk about the width, and then we want to talk about the length. But here in text, almost all the time, he's going to bring the depth and then the length and then the Rochav. Just keep that thought in your mind, and B'ezrat Hashem will get an answer to it.
I don't understand. What are you saying? I would have thought that the depth would be the last one, but what are you actually saying about? I didn't understand. I'm sorry.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is that just keep in mind, he's talking about Omek, yeah, the depth. He's talking about Orech, which is the length. And then he's talking about rochav, which is the width. And usually, if I would be describing it, and usually how people describe it, they describe the depth, the width, and then the length, because this is the three parts, right? The depth, the width, and the length. But here, in almost every way in text, when Reb Hillel or the Mittel Rebbe describe these three dimensions, they describe it in this order: the depth, the length, and then the rochav.
Okay, I
and
never,
there is
I
a
never
yichud there. Yeah,
interesting.
and
I
then
never,
there's a
I never thought that width would come first. I mean, this is a chiddush to even think like, to understand that.
okay,
to think like
so
that.
okay. Kihina b'chinas omek, because the aspect of omek eina mahus klal, because the omek doesn't have its own mahus. Rak shehu b'chinas his chabrus mi mahus lemahus. It's only a connecting between one mahus and the other mahus.
What's Mahus again?
Etzem,
The
mahus is, the definition of mahus is an entity, we can call it.
Thank you.
Between one entity and another entity. Mahus stands for mahu. What is it? Right? So everything has mahus because it's something, right? So we're just going to call it entity, whatever entity it is. It might be a spiritual entity or it might be a physical entity, but it's something. So that something, it's some form of existence, right? Okay. So be'etzem hu bechinas ayin. In essence, it's the aspect of ayin. Kmo keren, like the corner. Shemechaber shtei hadafnes. Mimizrach v'darom. That it's like a corner that connects two walls. Yeah, the western wall and the south wall. Okay, shekol mashe hitiru eze mahus shayach ledoifen mizrach or ledoifen darom. Rag bechinas ayin shuhu hamechabram u anikra keren. Which is truly, we cannot say that the corner belongs more to one side than to the other. Corner is the meeting point. Corner doesn't have existence on its own. How do we know that? Well, this is the corner, right? When I'm just going to remove two walls, what's going to happen? I'm going to see nothing. The corner doesn't have its own existence. It exists only when two things meet, right? So if I'm going at that point that creates the corner, does it belong to one side or to the next? It doesn't belong to any of it because it's non-existent. It's not something that could belong to any of the sides. It's only created by two things meeting, okay? So this is the omek, this is the depth. Now, v'chein, bein hashmoshes. Now he brings another example. Bein hashmoshes, right? Bein hashmoshes is, I don't know exactly the English word for it. It's the time between sunset and when the three stars emerge, right? It's usually like half an hour time. And people usually don't notice that, but a lot of things happen during Bein Hashmoshes, right? We all know that on Friday night, Bein Hashmoshes, very interesting things were created, right? There were like 10 things that created. And if you study each one of them separately, it's like, you know, a whole depth on its own. Very weird stuff. For me, the most weirdest stuff of this famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avos is the mouth of Bilam's whatever donkey. Like, come on, yeah, very weird stuff. So we understand that it's not an ordinary time. It's a very interesting this spiritual time frame, and some people actually according to Kabbalah, you should not be sleeping during that time. For various reasons, okay, and not to scare anybody, but it's not a time where a person should be sleeping. So bein hashmashas, right? Why this is important? Because truly one day is leaving and the new day is coming in, right? And this bein hashmashas, it's truly halachic gather of that time. It doesn't belong to either of these two times. It doesn't belong to the day before and doesn't belong to the day that emerges right after. How do we know it? For example, if somebody is being born, a boy is being born Friday bein hashmashas, right? Meaning it's between Friday and Shabbos. His bris is actually going to be on Sunday. Why? Because if we say it belongs to the Friday, but what if it truly belongs to the Saturday, to Shabbos? That means we cannot make bris earlier, right? However, let's say we're going to say, okay, let's be on the safe side and we should make bris on Shabbos, but we cannot make bris on Shabbos because you're causing something to bleed, right? Only when a child 100% born on Shabbos. What if you're born on Friday? Then you cannot make on Shabbos bris. So therefore, the bris is actually completely pushed away to Sunday for this reason. And there are many different halachas pertaining to this time, but we definitely know, even from halacha perspective, is a very interesting time called bein hashmashas, okay, which is the b'chinas ayin. We're going to go back right here, right? Shu b'chinas ayin hamechaber laila liyom. It's something that connects night to day, okay? Shehu eino mahuz zmani klal. And interestingly, he's talking about that this is not a timely mahus at all. It's not a timely entity. Why? Because if you're truly going to contribute it to any particular zman, it belongs to the day or to the night. Yeah, cannot. Right? The same way we see the same pattern, right? And this is where our mind would have to work very, very hard, is when we work with Masholim, we don't get caught up on the details of the Masholim, although they are very important. We really want to see a pattern that is similar throughout all the Masholim, right? We see in the corner, it doesn't have an entity, meaning physical entity. We see in the bein hashmashas, there's no timely entity. And then we're going to see between Rav and Talmud. Okay, let's see what's going on there. Harav mashpia sechel Talmud, right? The Rav, which wants to give over an intellect, something intellectual for the Talmud. Shemuchrach liyos b'mashpia b'chinas ayin. Right, that the mashpia right now, he is a Rav, he's a mashpia. He has to have an aspect of ayin. So we're on another page right here. What is the b'chinas ayin of the mashpia? Shehu hanachas atmius or sichlo haruchani. Wow, which is putting away the essence, the essential light, which is a spiritual essential light of his intellect. Okay, it's like, wow, what does this mean? Why does he uses the word ruchani here? Ruchani uses the word here because it's more refined compared to the makabel. Okay, so he, and any teachers are here, we do it all the time, right? You're teaching elementary, you're teaching preschool, you're taking this lofty concept, and you really need to be thinking like, how am I going to explain it in a way that it will be received, at the same time knowing the limitations of the makabel. I need to package it in a certain way, right? So this knowing how to package it in a certain way that on one hand it will be understood, on the other hand without killing the concept. What do you mean killing the concept? Because we could sometimes explain something, but you know what we did? We literally we sacrificed the essence of the concept, right? So on the mashpia, there is like this two concept. How am I staying faithful to the essence? At the same time, be able to give it in a package that will be digestible. Okay, now that process is a painful process by all mashpim, and that process is the ayin of the mashpia. Why? Because they need to put away the way they understand things and focus on the makabel. Okay, what is he going to do? Hamevio, right? That he brings it, his intellect. Lihislapshut seichel shelefi erech kli hamekabel. And this is the key word here, that he has to package that seichel that is going to be enclosed in the seichel that is in accordance to the keli of the makabel. Okay, and this is why some teachers are good and some teachers are not so good. Why is it? It is because of this packaging strategy that they use, right? How are they making sure that it is in accordance to the keli of the makabel? Okay, and in a teaching terms, it's what is the zone of proximal development? Where is makabel stands? What language I can use and what language I cannot use? Where is it? Okay. Yeah, just 1 second. I cannot speak right now. You would need to wait. Right now, no. Right now, you need to wait and let me finish what I'm doing. In about half an hour. Okay.
I'll look on it very quietly.
No, I'm sorry. No. Sorry, guys. I'm having my makablim down there. Okay. V'chein, and so, b'makabel, in the makabel. Now, we're talking about two ayins. They're going to be the meeting point, because truly, we're not talking about makabel and mashpia relationship, where we're talking about a quantitatively difference between one and the other. Okay, because we, Baruch Hashem, live in Dor De'ah. We don't need teachers to give us information, right? We need teachers to give us transformation. What is transformation? Transformation is the qualitatively difference. It's a qualitative difference. It's a different quality of a thought process. And that's why we go to mashpim, right? Because we no longer lack information. We want to have transformation, right? And therefore, this makabel, right, needs to have ayin as well. How is it? V'chein b'makabel muchrach li yis bittul. He has to have bittul, okay? And this is intranslatable word, right? Bittul. It's not really a nullification. That's why I'm not going to translate it that way, right? It's bittul. And we're going to know what that is. It's one of those, like chachma and bina, those terminologies that we, Bezrat Hashem, going to include in our terminology vocabulary that Neria is preparing for us. But shimamon is emptiness. He has to have bittul and shimamon besichlo, in his intellect. Ha megusham, and he puts it in parentheses right here. It's coarse. You see over here, he wrote over there, haruchani, by a mashpia, it's more spiritual. And here he puts it ha megusham. It's coarse. And that's exactly why they meet. That's exactly why mashpia wants to give, and makabel wants to receive. Because we want to receive, not because we want to get more information, but we want to receive because we want to process information differently, through different kelim. And this is done through bittul, okay? There's bittul and shemamon b'sichlo ha-megusham, shahayalo ad heina, that he possessed up until now. And if we are very carefully able to provide this bittul and shimamon in our seichel, this is going to be in the past, meaning the coarseness of our brain is going to be in the past, right? Meaning we're not going to carry over. Why he needs to have bittul and shimamon, so he's able to receive, right, to register the seichel from the mashpia, right? And it's a famous saying, Kama Amar, Kol Talmid she'en sfatav not fosmar, right? We're going to go back to the chushim. What happens when we really want to eat something and we are very, very hungry? We start salivating, right? This desire to quench our hunger causes us to salivate. So the same thing is here. This is a famous saying that all the Talmidim, right, that do not have, that their lips do not salivate, right? Meaning they are not so eager to receive that seichel, right? They don't feel like, so then they cannot really receive. This is the aspect of ayin of the makabel. Shehu hashiflus shaboy. This is where a person really comes to realizations that all the tools that I possess up until now are nothing. I want to have a greater way of understanding, right? It's not about information. Information is not going to go anywhere. It's stored in our neurons, in our brain. This is more. I don't know what to do with this information. How do I move further? I can't. I have to receive a higher level of consciousness so I can do something with this information. Okay, and that's exactly what we're talking about. This is Bechina Sa'ayin. And that Bechina Sa'ayin is going to create a space. And moreover, the more the person is in this aspect of ayin, which is the bittul and shiflus is removing self out of the picture. There is no me, right? There's something greater ahead of me. Okay? Yoiser yitrachev sichloi. And this is the key word here, right? The more I'm in the state of ayin, the more my seichel is going to expand. Okay? Lekabel shefa mina mashpia. To receive flow from the mashpia. And he says, V'zeu ikar ha'omek. This is the main aspect of omek, shu b'chinas ayin. This is the aspect of ayin, shel ha'mekabel, of the mekabel. Shemizeh nishlam kavanat hashefa b'shleimus. That the whole kavana of the flow is being completed with the omek of the mekabel. How is it? So parentheses. Kikol ikar kavanas hashefa. That the whole main point of the shefa, of the flow, hu sheyitkabel b'mekabel, that it will be actually received by the mekabel. That's it. This is the main point. There's no point of lecturing people if it's not going to land. There's no point of, I don't know, teachers do it a lot of times. My main point is that I said my point. That's it. And you deal with it, how you're going to be receiving it. It doesn't work like that, right? The whole point is that I'm actually received. It's actually, they call in Hebrew, nofel asimon, right? That asimon actually falls and I'm making the phone call. Okay, so the same thing is here. The main point is that it's actually received. And good teachers, they don't sleep at night if something is not landed. You know, they find a new strategy and yet another strategy and yet another. And there are many different things. And we see that with the Rebbe, where it's like this sicha and yet another sicha, and then coming from this angle and then from that angle, and then go do miftzayim and do this and do that, right? It's like that restlessness of the mashpia. At the same time, it's expected of us as mekablim to have that space. And he says over here, Al yidei ha'omek, and through the omek, niklat. Yeah, this is a new word for us. Niklat is recorded, right? Or another word is absorbed. The shefa is absorbed, bechitov, at best, bekli hamekabel, in the kela of the mekabel, vadal. Okay? And meaning through omek, we actually absorb that godly light that mashpia has for us. Now, that's more, the whole process of haklata is going to be more discussed in second chapter. But right now, you know, we're sticking with whatever, you know, we have in this chapter. And therefore the idea of the omek, is an empty pit Okay, haholech lemata mata chulavadal. That continues all the way down, meaning the Omek is, this vast thing. Now, a lot of people get confused by these words. 1 second, I thought Omek, it was something up. What this has to do with down? They're interrelated. When he brings this mashal, halal rekan, is an empty pit that goes deep, deep, right? Meaning there's no end to it. When you look at this space on Earth, I don't know if I grew up in mountains, so we saw a lot of these things. You see this little opening in the ground, and you stick your face inside, and you see it's like it's endless. It's like there's no end to it. And if you throw a rock there, you don't hear it actually land, right? You don't even know how deep that is. But that's, what Omek is. Omek is a space where it has no end to it. So I see, oh my gosh, I see 11 messages. Okay, that was on one breath. So please review it. But Chush is always there and blocked by layer, preventing it. Right, usually in mundane concept, depth is measurable, right? Here, when he mentions about the depth is not measurable. We can't really measure it. That's why it's the aspect of ayin that he keeps saying. Now, regarding the Chush, it may or may not be blocked. Yeah, but there are layers preventing its revelations. Okay, so it's using a known term in completely different way. Okay. Done. Dusk. I guess it's dusk, yeah. Twilight. Packaging without watering down. Yeah, that's a very good terminology. It's true, without watering it down. Chas v'sholom, changing it. Okay. Wiped out with emptiness. Shemamon. Have to empty ourselves of preconceived notions based on human experience. Yes. Space. We should move on to the breakout rooms. Yes. Okay. So I know it's a lot. It is a very interesting thing, and no matter how many times we're going to be reading about it, there's always something mystical about it. And I guess the best way of approaching this piece is, trying to stick with the Masholim, right? So there are 3 Masholim. Is the corner, the Bein Hashmoshes, and Talmud and Mashpia and Makabel relationship. And let's go to our breakout rooms. Please do not leave. This process is very, very essential. We have another 15 minutes where we could really, for some of you, this is something that you probably learned from other Mamorim. So for some of you, a lot of this information is something new. And it would be amazing if we could just summarize it together in the breakout rooms. Neria, would you want to give us what should we be doing specifically?
No, I think just to discuss the 3 Masholim, or take one of them, whatever, just to discuss this idea with each other. That's it.
I'm not quite sure where, I updated my Zoom, and I'm not sure where to do the breakout rooms. Neria, would you know?
No. Where it says more, there are 3 dots, it says breakout rooms.
All right, I see it, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So,
So there are 19 people. Can do 6 rooms of 3 and 1 of 4.
okay. Yeah, Chaya, I think you put it together very nicely. It is. That's exactly what Omek is.
Oh,
And
can you-
yes.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Chaya, you want to repeat it?
Linda was just saying that it's kind of like this, it's like this, I don't know what would be connecting between 2 pipelines, but it's this transition phase, but also this, like this space that allows the 2 pipelines to connect somehow. Or that's like that's just an imagery, but just, it's this phase of it's, I guess in that ayin, it's obviously, it's an entity, but the only entity is that it's so to speak a channel to allow another phase to happen, or like I was saying, in order to, you know, grow sometimes, in order to to shed, like in order to allow new skin to grow, the snake has to shed that old skin. So it's like that, but in that in between phase, that, like, that's my understanding of that ayin, of that, you know.
So
I don't know exactly how it happened.
I'm just wondering if you're saying that ayin is not this and not this, but some in between. Can we propose that it's both?
It's interesting. I'm gonna get to you. Let me just answer Chaya. I'll get to you. You're bringing on another interesting discussion. Yes, Chaya, I would say that it is an in-between stage, and you could, you should do it intentionally. It definitely an intentional thing. That's why we go to classes, right? We wouldn't go to classes if we, just wanted to confirm our previous existence. I mean, some people do, but that's, just for me, it's a waste of time, because if you already, have a certain preconceived idea about something, and something, it could mean not necessarily in a negative terms. It's my way of understanding things, right? To go to somebody else who you can trust, right? And I'm going to put specifically their trust, because we don't just go from classes to classes and, take from and into the state of bittul, right? Because a lot of times we could catch, things that we may not necessarily want to catch, right? That's why we have Bina. And if you remember, we're going to go back to the definition of Bina. Bina is going to sift through what is true, what is not true. Remember this few lines that Reb Hillel was talking about? So that's exactly what it is. Exactly. We need to sift through the information. And this is our conscious mind. And that's why we initially go through Bina. Because if we're going to take in everything that's out there in the world, if we're going to listen news with a state of bittul, I wouldn't advise you for that, right? Meaning it's a choice who we have bittul to and who we don't have bittul to, right? And this is a key word here. When it comes to, Torah and Chassidus, we obviously want to have bittul to these things, right? But when we just, I don't know, not every single teacher we're going to have bittul to. Some teachers we go for information, right? So that's why, that clarity is very important. And now, when we make that choice, it is a choice. What's the choice? For me, I'll tell you how my bittul works. Is that that's why I like to do text-based learning. Why? I want to read the same thing over and over again. Why? Because the message is in the text. I want to get to that thought process, because if we notice, everything is given to us through text, right? Through oisias. These oisias, they possess a thought process. And if I'm able to adapt that thought process into how I think, I'll come to the same conclusions as well, pertaining to another subject, right? So for me, it's very vital to get to that thought process. And this is what my bittul is. If I'm applying my thought process to this particular information, I'm not going to get to the transformation where I want to get. I want to remove myself from the way I think. Okay, so now, do you see similarities? The way I receive is I'm putting away my way of thinking to receive something greater. That's what will make me a better teacher. I will be able to remove myself in order to give. So it's the same ayin. You see, me as a makabel and me as a teacher. It's the same ayin. Later on is going to jump into that. But that's what you're basically saying is that connecting point, and it is an intentional thing. Yes, I don't think ayin ever referred to as, by the way, I just entered into the state of ayin. It just happened to me. You know, it's like ayin is an intentional thing. We intentionally put our thoughts away and we intentionally, you know, engage in a particular activity. And that's, you know, our freedom of choice. That's, you know, constantly there.
Mila, I just want to add, I think that's a really important point that we'll see later when we look at the Omek of Bina and the Omek of Chochmah. We'll see that exact point, that you don't just fall into an ayin, like into this like nothing state. It actually comes from a lot of hard work. That when you put in the effort, then you're able to come to the Omek, to that place of ayin. And people who are artists might understand that when you really create something new, it's because you've put in a lot of work and gone to that place where something new emerges. And you don't even know, like, where did that come from? But it doesn't just come without the effort. So it's almost like the opposite of what you think. You think the ayin is just like, you slip into this kind of nothing state. It's not that at all. It's actually the opposite. It comes after a lot of toil.
Right. And I would just want to get back to Mrs. Stolik, is what you just mentioned is a sikha of the Rebbe. I believe it's Pinchas, Tavshin on Beis, where the Rebbe talks about what you mentioned, right? If it's a connecting point, it must be a little bit of the both, right? If it's connecting to entities. The Rebbe says in that sikha, very interesting, it talks about now, right? The present moment. And the Rebbe says that the present moment is the connecting point between the past and the future. And that past and the future, and the Rebbe says, the fact that he's able to connect the past, which is Golos, and the future, which is Geula, now it's actually higher than both. Not a little bit of the both. It's actually higher than the both. And that's why now is more important than the future. It's interesting, but yeah, I guess you could go there. I wanted to read that sikha myself, but it's a beautiful thing, because I know we intuitively want to live either in the past or in the future. If you catch yourself at any given moment and just stop, say, okay, what was I thinking up until now? 99.9%, it's your thoughts of the past or making plans for the future. It's usually never now. Like, now, this is what I'm doing. Okay. It's like we kind of like resist the now, because we, I don't know, we could go into it. You know, that's a whole different sugya, you know, about living in now. But that's just what it is, because now is a very hard way of living. But that's where the Rebbe says is the bracha in time is when we live in now. Whatever we're doing, regardless to how important what we're going to do or what we should be doing, really accepting the now as a perfect moment. Yeah, and but I would say among all the Rebbeim, the Rebbe is more essence driven in the Chassidus. Is what you're doing right now is the perfect activity that you should be engaged in. Exactly, now is the Omek. Yes, Frina. Now is the Omek, is the depth. And when we want to control the outcome, we usually, want to make sure that what I'm doing now is what I actually planned. And it's actually gonna bring more to Ellis. But that's not trusting Hashgacha Pratis, right? That's, a lot of things go into what's, why we need to enjoy the now. Yeah, Omek is not an entity. That's true. So it's not a little bit of both. It's higher. It's the state of ayin, of what now manifests. And if we truly connect to now, this is, And interestingly, you see all the goyim are talking about, the present moment more than ever, right? You look all into this new age teachings out there, talking more than ever about the now.
But they're doing it for a different purpose than we are, I guess.
I'll tell you, Malka, I was thinking about it before, but I really like the Rambam's explanation about other religions, and I really connect to it. The Rambam talks about that the nations of the world are coming to the realization of Hashem Echad in their own ways. And if we see how, Muslims coming to the realization through their teachings, if they learn it, this is the key word, right? And if they will be learning the teachings, they will be a little bit in a better place. And this is all the Rambam says. It's the light of Mashiach affecting the world. That even goyim coming to perceive such lofty ideas that Torah has to teach, but it comes in a way that they would be meskabel. Isn't it? That is the goal. The goal is that mekablim should be meskabel that light, that it's actually going to land. And if Mashiach is working through other means and explaining to goyim and revealing things to them the way they will receive it, let it be so, right? I mean, this is how they receive. Now, the question, I guess, for us, and that was, my question for myself, how do I want to receive? And Baruch Hashem, you'll find a lot of it in Chassidus, all of it, right? It says, hafachba b'hafachba de kula ba, right? If you turn things upside down in Torah, hafach is to toil, right? When you work, I don't know if you were ever involved in digging, right? But we used to work a lot we had like a little land where we used to, plant things. So in the planting process, you turn things over, right? You dig the shovel in and then you turn it and then you break it. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So this is hafachba v'hafachba, right? You turn over things and everything is in Torah. And it's beautiful, Baruch Hashem, we have access to this knowledge, and this is the goal of this workshop.
Mila, do you want to read what people are writing in the chat? Different ideas.
Yeah. Now is the Omek. Beautiful point. Now we all have in this moment. Yeah, Omek is not an entity. We are in every moment doing what we want to do. Okay, sometimes we do what we don't want to do, at least me. We are forced to do this, liking it. Okay, mindfulness. Those who have a chush to emes. We all have chush to emes. Our goal is Godfulness. Beautiful. Yeah, I like that, Godfulness. Yes, I like that. That's why it's so hard to be fully present, because it's not an entity and it's literally changing every second. Yes, Penina, wow. Breath connects us to now. Yes. Indians are emptying the mind. that the goal always to fill it with Torah and the mitzvot. Yeah, I don't know much about Indians, so I can't really tell you what the goal is. Yeah, but there is something which is called, I read a lot about the Rebbe say about transcendental meditation. I guess that's what it is, right? It's about emptying, ourselves from thoughts. I guess the goal of that meditation is to connect to that place of ayin in their own way. But as I understood from the Rebbe, that it really could get us into some kind of trouble, because very important in all those Western theologies is where the energy is coming from in doing things, right? And if the energy is coming from whatever the spiritual sources that they connect to, so the question is whether we want to align ourselves with those energies. That just, what it is. Okay, to get into the moment, tune into the body, jump into the swimming pool, eat something, breathe. That's already. Okay, to direct the mind, his bonanus. Yes. And I think this is very interesting, to direct our mind, because our mind likes to flow based on the programs it was programmed to flow. We like to think in patterns. What is TM? Right, transcendental meditation, for sure, it's Asur. And I don't know exactly why. The Rebbe specifically says that, no, transcendental meditation is not mindfulness. Mindfulness is about now. Transcendental meditation is about nothing. It's like really, just taking off in a way. And people usually go into transcendental meditation with taking few doses of psychedelics, I guess, right? That's that comes as a package if you really want to have experience, right? But yeah, anybody who is interested about different hispailos, please study the Kuntrasa hispailos. They go into all of it, right? Dimyonot shav, people becoming delusional about what the experience and thinking that they are somewhere where they're not. So yeah.
Can you address? I see here Tzivia is touching the point of the idea that if you want to connect to the present moment, that the body is the way to do that. So she's saying either through physical things, or you engage in a mitzvah that brings you into the present. Is that something that we're going to look at later? How the body brings us to the Omek, or it's not?
That's why
really...
Hamaisa Wa'ikar. That's why the Maisa Wa'ikar, there are actually 6 mitzvahs that everybody's, having a hard time with, that are not directly done with a motion of our hands or feet, right? This is the mitzvahs of our mind and of our heart. And I always wondered, like, how does that really a mitzvah? Because the mitzvah involves physicality of our body, right? Where is the transformation? But if we really, Bezrat Hashem, we're going to see the effect of his bonus on our brain. It actually changes the physicality of our brain. So although this is not taking a coin and putting it into a pushka, right? But us engaging in a certain thought process in a specific way of his bonus actually creates the neural pathways in our brain, and it's physical. It's a physical activity. So I think that's where neuroscience making that connections, that people actually see physical changes when they engaged in a certain thought processes. And the same thing is with heart. The Rebbe actually recommends in few letters people having heart conditions, right? Thinking about the ahava, love in our heart actually results in physical manifestation of it. There's something which is called heart coherence with the brain. It's a physical wave that actually changes the physicality of the heart and of the mind. It's actually something that could be measured. So our brain waves and our heart waves, this is something that could be measured. There are, utensils for this to measure heart coherence. So I think the science getting very sophisticated to notice these things. When we say Lev Mivin, the heart understands. I was really curious to find out from Heart Math Institute. Actually, they study the heart very interestingly, where they found that there are brain cells in the heart. Yeah, when Torah says that the heart understands, I always wondered, I mean, the physical heart doesn't understand, but the physical heart scientifically just pumps, the blood. But they're actually coming up with this new research, and it's very interesting that, it's definitely, on a mono level, we know that the heart understands, but now we could actually see how there are brain cells in the heart that make that connection of, certain wisdom and understanding. So, Nuria, you want to add?
Right. I just want to add that I think that that we've covered what we can for the morning, and people, please review. And next week we will continue, and we'll look at the Omek of Chochmah, and you'll start to see the application of this idea of Omek. So we look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Chodesh Tov.
Thank you. And Chodesh Tov.
Chodesh Tov.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, the Omek is very tantalizing. Can't wait.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mela, do you want to close the room?
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.